and impatiently waved the car by. Waved it by like a big shot, like he couldn't be bothered to assert his rights to the pedestrian crosswalk. "We should have parked closer," Tom McCall said. "I'm freezing my ass off." As the car went by, a woman driver peered out at the three of them. The overhead reading light was on, and she was wearing an overcoat, wool hat, and one black glove. Her bare hand was holding a cell phone to her ear, and she was talking as she looked at them. A multitasker, headed for a 3-car smash-up somewhere down the line. "One big problem there. Somebody would have seen it and put 2 and 2 together, and then we got a witness," Jimmy said. "Besides, the walk'll warm you up." "Glad I got the gloves," McCall said. Becky Welsh said, "It's April, you fool. You don't need gloves for the cold. Just walk." Jimmy had smoked a Marlboro down to the filter, and he snapped it into the street and bent into the task of climbing the hill, Tom and Becky on his heels, the three of them throwing splashy shadows in the pale April moonlight. Halfway up, Jimmy stopped to catch his breath, turned and said, "That's a pretty sight of the town." They all turned to look. The Bigham business district spread out below them, the county courthouse with its eternal flame, a few cars turning corners, flashing red lights on an ambulance heading into the hospital. The Minnesota River was down there, a black ribbon at the foot of downtown. Not much more than a creek, really. They'd left Jimmy's Firebird in an apartment parking lot at the base of the hill, where they could get to it in a hurry. "It is pretty," Tom agreed. Puffs of steam came out of their mouths, dissipating in the night air. Jimmy took another cigarette out of the pack and tapped the tobacco end on a thumbnail, then cupped his hands to his mouth and lit it with an old Zippo lighter that left behind the stink of lighter fluid when he sparked it off. His square jaw looked yellow in the light of the flame. The trace of a ladder-stitched scar showed up on his chin from the bad old hay-humping days down in Shinder when a piece of wire from an ancient baling machine lashed him like a whip. He was wearing a green army field jacket that he'd bought at a flea market with a collar up under his ears and a blue Dodgers baseball cap with a big white L.A. on the front. He'd never been to L.A., but he planned to go someday soon. He'd manage Becky's career, and they'd both get rich and buy a Winnebago and tour around the country. "Diamonds tonight," Becky said. Tom said, "I don't know about this. It don't feel entirely right to me." Tom was tall and wiry and wore silver-rimmed glasses that he got from the 3 weeks he was in the Navy. At the end of 3 weeks, one of the RDCs noticed the scale in his arms and asked, "Is that the heartbreak of psoriasis I see there?" It was, and Tom was out. On this cold night, the psoriasis was concealed by a thin blue work shirt and an uninsulated leather jacket, the sleeves too short to cover Tom's bony wrists. With his black jacket and black jeans and black hair and glasses and big nose, he hovered around Jimmy and Becky like a cartoon crow. "Don't be a pussy," Becky said. "It's diamonds," Jimmy said. He rolled the words around the cigarette as he studied Tom's pinched face. "What's the matter with you? You look nervous. You nervous?" "No, I'm not nervous. Just want things to go right," Tom said. They crossed the top of the hill, heads down, hands in their pockets, around the curve, and past George, past Arroyo. They were in the dark, with nobody around, 1:45 in the morning, a sharp eye out for prowling cops. Jimmy had a pistol stuck in his waistband at the small of his back, and he reached back under his coat and touched it from time to time, a talisman of power. He'd never had one of those. "Getting close," Becky said. Now she sounded nervous. They passed a streetlight, and in the pool of light, which fell on them like a mist, she said, "Stop a minute, Jimmy." She caught his arm and pulled his cigarette hand out to one side, and kissed him, and put her tongue in his mouth, and pressed her pelvis against him. He tasted like nicotine and French fries. Jimmy said, "Baby," and stepped back, and took a drag and tipped his head into a dark side street, and said, "Let's go." They were going over to Lincoln, to a dark wood frame house with a wide front porch and bridal wreath bushes down the side.